I built the business my grandfather started with my own hands, and I destroyed it the same way. Not out of spite, not out of rage, out of something colder than either. The slow burn realization that loyalty, when weaponized against you, becomes indistinguishable from betrayal. My name is Vanessa Harrington. For 11 years, I ran Harrington Industrial Textiles with my husband, Derek. We weren't just married. We were partners in every sense: financial, operational, strategic, or so I believed. The unraveling began on a Tuesday in March, the kind of gray, wet morning where the sky feels like it's pressing down on the city. I was in the car with our accountant, Sabrina Whitaker, heading back from a supplier meeting in Newark when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mrs. Harrington? A woman's voice, clipped and professional. Speaking. This is Patricia Langford from Excelsior Property Management. I'm calling about the lease renewal for Unit 4C at 1847. Riverside, your husband requested we contact you directly this year since you're listed as the co-signer. I felt Sabrina glance at me from the driver's seat. I think you have the wrong number, I said carefully. We don't have any properties managed by Excelsior. A pause. I have Derek Harrington listed here as the primary leaseholder since 2016. The unit is under Harrington Industrial Textiles corporate account. Are you saying you're not aware of this property? 7 years. Can you give me the address again? 1847 Riverside Drive, Unit 4C. It's a 2-bedroom executive apartment. The current lease expires at the end of April, and we need to confirm renewal by the 15th. I thanked her, hung up, stared at the rain streaking across the windshield. Sabrina said nothing, but her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Did you know about a corporate apartment? I asked her. No. Her voice was flat. And if it's been billed to the company for 7 years, I should have. Pull the records when we get back, I said. Everything related to real estate expenses since 2015. The apartment existed. The payments existed. They ran through a discretionary account Derek had established in 2016 for executive accommodations and client hospitality. The board had approved it, I had approved it, because we occasionally needed short-term housing for consultants or out-of-town partners. What we found in the records was a single recurring charge: $3,200 monthly to Excelsior Property Management, coded as Executive Housing Operations. For 7 years. No variation, no other properties, just one. I didn't confront Derek that night. I told him I had a headache and went to bed early, my laptop open beside me in the dark, running searches on the address. 1847 Riverside Drive was a mid-rise luxury building in a neighborhood we'd never worked in, never visited, never had reason to be. The kind of place with a doorman and a gym and private balconies overlooking the water. I found a resident forum online. Someone had posted a complaint about noise from 4C 6 months earlier. The responses were neighborly, sympathetic. One stood out. I live next door to 4C. The couple there is usually very quiet. I was surprised to hear about noise issues. They're lovely people, always very considerate. I'd recommend just knocking and talking to them directly. The couple there. I read it again. Then again. I didn't sleep. I lay beside Derek in the dark, listening to him breathe, and felt something inside me calcify. In the morning, I told him I was visiting a fabrication facility upstate and would be gone all day. He kissed me on the forehead, distracted, already on his phone. I drove to 1847 Riverside Drive. The building was exactly as polished as I'd imagined. Marble lobby, understated brass fixtures, a doorman in a gray uniform who smiled at me automatically. I'm here to see Unit 4C, I said. Are they expecting you? I'm Derek Harrington's wife, I said. The words tasted strange. I need to check on the apartment. His smile didn't falter, but something shifted in his eyes. Confusion, maybe, or recognition. Of course, Mrs. Harrington, I'll let them know you're coming up. Them. I rode the elevator in silence. 4th floor, down a carpeted hallway that smelled faintly of lavender. Unit 4C. I knocked. The woman who opened the door was younger than me by perhaps 5 years. blonde, carefully maintained, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater. She looked at me with polite curiosity, no alarm. "Can I help you?" "I'm Vanessa Harrington," I said. Her face didn't change. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "I'm Derek's wife." Now her expression shifted. Not shock, not guilt, confusion. "Derek's wife," she repeated slowly. "Yes." She stared at me for a long moment, then quietly. "That's not possible." "I assure you it is." "No." Her voice was firmer now. "I'm Derek's wife. We've been married for 7 years. Her name was Lydia Coleman. She invited me in, not out of hospitality, but out of the same stunned need for answers that was currently hollowing me out from the inside. The apartment was tasteful, warm, lived in. There were photos on the mantel. Derek and Lydia on a beach somewhere tropical. Derek and Lydia at what looked like a wedding. Her wedding, his wedding, their wedding. Derek with his arm around her at a restaurant I didn't recognize. "When did you meet Derek?" I asked. My voice sounded strange, distant. 8 years ago. We got married 7 years ago in September. She was standing very still in the center of the living room, arms crossed. "He works in industrial supply. He travels a lot for work. He's gone most of the week, but he's always here on weekends." "What company does he work for?" "Prestige Industrial Solutions." I'd never heard of it. "Does he have an office?" "He works remotely. He has a home office here." She gestured vaguely toward a closed door off the hallway. "Can I see it?" She hesitated, then nodded. The office was small, efficient, a desk with a laptop docking station, currently empty, file cabinets, a printer, everything necessary for someone who worked from home. On the wall was a framed business license for Prestige Industrial Solutions, LLC, registered in New Jersey. Principal, Derek Harrington. I took a photo of it with my phone. "How does he support you?" I asked. "Financially, I mean." Lydia's jaw tightened. "He has a good job. He provides well for us." "Us?" "We have a daughter, Marisa. She's 5. The room tilted slightly. "Where is she now?" "Preschool. She'll be home at 3. I looked at my watch. It was 11. "Lydia?" I said carefully. "Derek and I have been married for 13 years. We run a company together, Harrington Industrial Textiles. It's a family business. My family's business." She shook her head slowly. "That's not possible." "I can prove it." "So can I." We sat at her kitchen table and compared evidence like lawyers preparing for trial, marriage certificates, both legal, both filed in different counties, photos spanning years, shared bank accounts, hers with deposits from Prestige Industrial Solutions, mine with shared ownership of Harrington Industrial Textiles, mortgage documents. She didn't have one. The apartment was leased. I had one. Our house in Montclair was in both our names. "He's here every weekend," she said. "Friday night through Monday morning. Sometimes he stays over on Wednesday if he doesn't have to travel." "He's with me the rest of the time," I said. "He comes home every night. We have dinner together. We run the business together during the day." "That's impossible." "And yet..." She was crying now, silently, tears running down her face unchecked. I wasn't. I felt carved from ice. "How much does he give you monthly?" I asked. "That's private." "Lydia, please." "About 8,000 for rent, expenses, Marissa's preschool. 8,000 monthly, plus the $3,200 for rent that came directly from the company. $11,200 monthly for 7 years. I did the math in my head, just under $1 million from my family's company. I didn't tell Derek I knew, not yet. I went home, I made dinner, I asked him about his day. He told me about a contract negotiation that was going well, a supplier issue he was handling, a client meeting scheduled for Friday. Friday, when he would be with Lydia. "You'll be in the office Friday?" I asked. "Part of the day. I have an off-site meeting in the afternoon, might run late." "How late?" He shrugged, spearing a piece of chicken. "Hard to say, could be an evening thing. I might just stay over in the city if it goes long." "Where?" He looked up at me. "Where what?" Where would you stay? Probably the usual place. That corporate apartment we keep for situations like this. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, so complete. Right, I said. The executive apartment. Yeah, no point driving back. Late if I can just crash there. I nodded, took a sip of wine, let the silence settle. The next morning, I called an emergency board meeting. Harrington Industrial Textiles was technically a family corporation. My grandfather had founded it, my father had expanded it, and I had modernized it. The board consisted of me, Derek, my uncle Patrick Prescott, and two outside advisors, Sabrina, our accountant, and Kenneth Fletcher, our corporate attorney. I didn't tell Derek what the meeting was about. I just told him it was urgent and asked Sabrina to schedule it for that afternoon. Kenneth arrived first, looking concerned. Patrick arrived looking annoyed. He was semi-retired and didn't appreciate being pulled into operational matters. Derek arrived looking confused. "What's this about?" he asked as he sat down. "Financial irregularities," I said. Sabrina pulled up the spreadsheets on the conference room screen. 7 years of payments to Excelsior Property Management. $3,200 monthly, coded as operational expenses. This account was established in 2016 for executive housing and client hospitality, I said. But it's only ever been used for one property, Unit 4C at 1847 Riverside Drive. Derek, can you explain what this property is used for? He didn't miss a beat. It's exactly what it sounds like, executive housing. We use it when we have consultants in town or when I need to stay over in the city for early meetings. How often do you use it? Varies, maybe once or twice a month. Twice a month for 7 years at $3,200, monthly comes to over $250,000. That seems high for occasional use. It's a competitive market, and having consistent access to quality housing is part of our professional image. Who else uses it? Occasionally contractors, visiting partners. It's available as needed. Can you provide documentation of who's used it and when? I'd have to pull records. Please do. Kenneth cleared his throat. Vanessa, what's the concern? Here? This seems like standard operational expense. The concern, I said carefully, is that this property appears to be exclusively occupied by Derek and a woman named Lydia Coleman, who believes she is Derek's wife. The room went silent. Derek's face didn't change. I'm sorry, what? Lydia Coleman, you've been living with her at this address for 7 years. She believes you're married, you have a child together. That's insane! Is it? I pulled out my phone, pulled up the photos I'd taken in the apartment. Photos of Derek and Lydia. Photos of Derek with a little girl with his eyes and her blonde hair. The business license for Prestige Industrial Solutions. I passed the phone to Patrick. He looked at the photos, looked at Derek, looked at me. Derek, he said quietly, what the hell is this? I don't know what Vanessa is trying to imply, but I'm not implying anything, I said. I'm stating facts. You've been maintaining a second household using company funds. You've presented yourself as married to another woman. You've established a separate business entity that appears to be a shell for funneling money. This is ridiculous. Vanessa, I don't know who this woman is or what she told you, but I have her marriage certificate. I've seen your daughter. I've spoken to the doorman who knows you as a resident. I've seen the payments. Derek, the evidence is overwhelming. Kenneth was making notes. Sabrina was staring at the spreadsheet like it might rearrange itself into something that made sense. Derek stood up. I'm not sitting here and listening to this. Sit down, Patrick said. His voice was hard. Sit down and explain this, or I'm calling our lawyers right now. Derek sat. It's not what it looks like, he said. Then what is it? Lydia is... She's someone I was involved with years ago. Before Vanessa and I got married, she got pregnant. I've been supporting her and the child. That's all. You're listed as married to her on public records, I said. She did that without my knowledge. She filed paperwork claiming we were married. I didn't know until it was too late to contest it without causing a scene that would hurt the business. So you just let her believe you were married? For 7 years? I was trying to handle a difficult situation quietly. Using company money. The company can afford it. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Vanessa? His voice was rising now. That I made a mistake. That I had a child out of wedlock and tried to take care of it without destroying our marriage or our business. I was trying to protect you. Don't. My voice came out colder than I intended. Don't make this about protecting me. Patrick was still staring at the photos. Derek, is this child yours? Yes. And you've been lying to all of us for 7 years. I've been handling a private matter privately. With company funds, Kenneth said. That's embezzlement. I'm an owner of this company. I can authorize expenses. Not without disclosure, I said. Not without the board's knowledge, and not for personal purposes disguised as business expenses. Derek looked at me directly for the first time since the meeting started. His expression was strange, part anger, part something that looked almost like pity. You're really going to do this? He said. You're going to blow up everything we've built over a mistake I made before we were even married? The mistake isn't having a child, I said. The mistake is the 7 years of lying that came after. The board voted to suspend Derek from operational duties pending a full audit. Kenneth recommended we bring in an outside forensic accountant. Patrick, who I'd expected to defend Derek out of some vestigial sense of male solidarity, instead looked at him with something close to disgust. How much? Patrick asked. Total. How much company money went to this? Sabrina pulled up a separate sheet. Based on preliminary review, approximately $1.1 million over 7 years. That's direct payments for the apartment, plus regular transfers that were coded as consultant fees, business development, and miscellaneous operational expenses. Derek's face was gray. I was going to pay it back. When? I asked. When I could. You're a 50% owner of a multi-million-dollar company. You could have paid it back at any time. He had no answer to that. That night, Derek didn't come home. I sat in our house in Montclair, the house we'd bought together 6 years ago, the house I'd thought represented our shared future, and tried to understand what I was feeling. Not heartbreak, not exactly. Heartbreak implied something had been broken, but what I was feeling was more like discovering something had never been whole to begin with. I'd spent 11 years building a life with someone who'd been building a parallel life the entire time. Not just an affair, not just infidelity, a complete second existence. Another wife, another child, another name, the business. That's what kept circling back. He'd used my family's business to fund it all. The business my grandfather had started in 1952. The business my father had nearly lost in the recession of 2008 and rebuilt. The business I'd modernized, computerized, scaled. Derek had joined it when we got married. He'd been competent, strategic, good with clients. I trusted him with increasing responsibility because I'd trusted him completely. And he'd used that trust to slowly, methodically steal from the company to maintain a fantasy. My phone buzzed. Derek, we need to talk. I didn't respond. Another text. I know you're angry. I understand. But destroying the company won't fix this. I stared at that for a long time. Another text. Think about your employees. Think about your family's legacy. Is revenge really worth all that? Revenge. He thought this was about revenge. The forensic accountant Kenneth brought in was a woman named Kendra Sheffield. Mid-40s, severe, expensive suit. She arrived with a team of 3 associates and a reputation for finding financial irregularities that companies didn't want found. I need complete access, she said in our first meeting. Every account, every record, every piece of documentation from 2015 to present. If something's locked, you unlock it. If something's missing, we find it. You'll have everything, I said. She nodded, looked at me directly. I need to ask, are you prepared for what we might find? What do you mean? In my experience, when someone's been hiding one thing for 7 years, they're rarely hiding just one thing. She was right. The apartment and the payments to Lydia were just the visible edge. Beneath that was a complex network of transfers, shell corporations, and misallocated expenses that had been bleeding the company for years. Prestige Industrial Solutions wasn't just a fake business Derek used to justify his double life. It was a functioning entity that appeared to do consulting work for Harrington Industrial Textiles. Except the work was never actually performed. Invoices were generated, payments were made, but the deliverables didn't exist. He was essentially paying himself consulting fees for work he never did, Kendra explained. About $15,000 quarterly. It was small enough not to trigger scrutiny, consistent enough to look legitimate. How much total? $250,000 over the 7 years, give or take. Then there were the vendor relationships. Derek had been authorizing payments to suppliers who were kicking back a percentage to Prestige Industrial Solutions. The suppliers billed us full price, paid Derek's shell company a finder's fee, and everyone profited except Harrington Industrial Textiles. Estimate on the total impact? I asked. Kendra looked at her notes. We're still tracing everything, but conservatively, $2.3 million over 7 years. Maybe closer to $2.5 million when we finish. $2.5 million stolen from my family's company by my husband. What are our options? I asked. Kenneth answered that. Criminal charges are the obvious route. This is fraud, embezzlement, potentially racketeering, depending on how the vendor relationships are structured. We have overwhelming evidence. And if we go criminal, it becomes public. Very public. It will damage the company's reputation. Clients will worry about financial stability. Competitors will use it against us. Banks might pull lines of credit. So we just let him get away with it? No. Kenneth leaned forward. We use the threat of criminal charges to force a settlement. He signs over his ownership stake, repays what he can, and disappears. We handle it internally, quietly, and the company survives. He keeps his freedom, I said. He loses everything else. I looked at Patrick. What do you think? I think, Patrick said slowly, that Derek destroyed your marriage and robbed our family. I also think Kenneth's right that a public trial could destroy the company your grandfather built. It's your call, Vanessa, but you have to decide what you're willing to sacrifice for justice. I didn't decide that day. I told them I needed time to think. I drove to 1847 Riverside Drive. Lydia answered the door. She looked hollow, like she hadn't been sleeping. What do you want? To talk. I don't think we have anything to talk about. We have everything to talk about. Can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in her living room. The photos were gone from the mantel. The apartment felt emptier somehow, despite nothing else having changed. He told me you were lying, Lydia said. He said you were having some kind of breakdown and making up stories to hurt him. Did you believe him? I wanted to. She looked at her hands. But then I started asking questions. Real questions. About his work. About where he stayed when he wasn't here. About why I'd never met his family or any of his friends. He got angry. He said I was being paranoid, that I was ruining everything. When did he leave? 3 days ago. He said he had a work emergency. He hasn't been back. I took out my phone, showed her the financial records, showed her where the money had come from, showed her that Prestige Industrial Solutions was a shell, that the $8,000 a month she'd been receiving came from my family's company. She cried. I didn't know, she said. I swear I didn't know. I believe you. What happens now? That depends. Have you spoken to a lawyer? Why would I need a lawyer? Because you're married to a man who's being investigated for embezzlement and fraud. Because you've been receiving money that was stolen from a business. Because even if you didn't know where it came from, you've benefited from it. Her face went white. Are you saying I could be charged with something? I'm saying you need to protect yourself and your daughter. What do you want from me? The truth, all of it. When you met Derek, what he told you about his life, what you know about his business, everything. Why would I help you? Because right now, I'm the only person in this situation who isn't trying to hurt you. I could have you arrested. I could sue you for the money. I could make your life hell. But I'm not interested in destroying you, Lydia. I'm interested in destroying him. She stared at me. You're serious? Completely. What do you want to know? Lydia told me everything. Derek had approached her 8 years ago at a professional networking event. He'd said he was a consultant in industrial supply, recently divorced, looking to start fresh. They'd dated for 6 months before he proposed. The wedding was small, just her parents and a few friends. He'd said his family was estranged and he didn't want them there. After they were married, he'd established a routine. Home every weekend, sometimes midweek, but usually traveling for work Monday through Thursday. She'd asked to come on trips with him sometimes, especially before Marissa was born, but he'd always said it was too complicated, too boring, too much work, and not enough time. Did you ever meet any of his colleagues? I asked. No, he said he kept work and personal life separate. Did you ever see any of his work materials, contracts, emails, anything? He has the office here, but he keeps it locked when he's not using it. Can you get me in? She hesitated, then nodded. The office was exactly as I'd seen it before. I went through the file cabinets methodically. Most of it was mundane, utility bills, lease documents, personal paperwork. But in the bottom drawer of the second cabinet, I found a box of external hard drives. 5 of them, labeled by year: 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. Can I take these? I asked. Take whatever you need. I took all 5 drives, took photos of the office, took copies of the lease documents that showed Derek's signature authorizing payment through Harrington Industrial Textiles. Before I left, Lydia asked, "What's going to happen to us?" "I don't know," I said honestly, "but you should prepare for the money to stop." "How am I supposed to support Marisa?" "The same way every other single mother does. Get a job, file for child support, make him responsible for the child he created." "I haven't worked in 6 years." "Then you have a lot of catching up to do." It wasn't kind, but I was past kindness. The hard drives were a gold mine. Derek had been meticulous. Every invoice, every payment, every email exchange with the vendors who were kicking back money to Prestige Industrial Solutions, it was all there. He'd kept records like he was proud of it, like it was a business he was building. Kendra went through everything with her team. When she presented her findings to the board 3 weeks later, the number had grown. 3.1 million, she said. That's the conservative estimate of total theft over 7 years. Could be as high as $3.4 million, depending on how we calculate indirect losses. Patrick looked like he'd aged 10 years. Jesus Christ! What's our exposure? I asked. Legally, if this becomes public. Kenneth took that one. Significant. The IRS will want to know why we didn't catch this. The state will want to audit our books. Clients will question our financial controls. We could face civil suits from shareholders if this is seen as negligence. We don't have shareholders, I said. You have employees. You have vendors. You have clients who might argue that inflated costs were passed on to them. This opens a lot of doors we don't want opened. So what do you recommend? The same thing I recommended 3 weeks ago. Private settlement. He signs over his ownership, repays what he can, and disappears quietly. He doesn't have $3 million, Patrick said. No, but he has assets. The house in Montclair is jointly owned. We can force a sale. He has retirement accounts, investment accounts, personal property. We can probably recover $800,000 to $1 million if we're aggressive. And the rest? We write it off. Consider it the cost of making this go away. I looked at Sabrina. What do you think? She'd been quiet through most of the meeting, but now she met my eyes directly. I think you didn't build this company to watch it burn. I think your grandfather didn't survive the Depression, and your father didn't survive the recession, so Derek could destroy everything out of selfishness. I think you have to protect what matters. And justice doesn't matter? Justice and revenge aren't the same thing. Justice is protecting the company and the people who depend on it. Revenge is making Derek suffer, regardless of who else gets hurt. I called Derek that night. He answered on the first ring. Vanessa, we need to talk, in person. When? Tomorrow, 1 p.m., my lawyer's office. What's this about? Your options. Derek looked terrible. He'd lost weight, his suit was wrinkled, he looked like a man who hadn't been sleeping. We met in Kenneth's conference room. Kenneth was there, Kendra was there, Patrick was there. Derek had brought his own lawyer, a man named Benjamin Donovan, who'd clearly been briefed on how bad things were. Kenneth laid out the evidence. Every invoice, every payment, every kickback, every lie. $3.1 million, Kenneth said. Stolen from Harrington Industrial Textiles over 7 years. We have documentation of everything. We have testimony from vendors. We have the hard drives from your office at Lydia's apartment. We have enough evidence to put you in prison for 10 to 15 years. Derek said nothing. We also have evidence of fraud in your marriage to Lydia Coleman, Kenneth continued. Bigamy, falsification of documents, identity fraud. The state's attorney would be very interested in this case. Benjamin shifted in his seat. What are you offering? A way out, I said. You sign over your complete ownership stake in Harrington, industrial textiles to Vanessa. You liquidate all personal assets and turn over everything to repay what you've stolen. You disappear. You never contact anyone associated with the company again. You never speak publicly about this. You take what we give you and you vanish. And if I don't? We file criminal charges. We prosecute to the fullest extent. We make sure every detail becomes public record. Your name will be synonymous with fraud and embezzlement. You'll lose everything and go to prison. You'll destroy the company's reputation in the process. Maybe, but you'll definitely go to prison. So the question is, are you willing to bet that I care more about the company's reputation than I do about watching you suffer consequences? Derek looked at me directly. You'd really do it. You'd burn it all down just to hurt me. No, I said. I'd burn it all down to stop you from profiting from what you stole. There's a difference. Benjamin leaned over and whispered something to Derek. Derek shook his head, whispered back. The conversation went on for a long moment. Finally, Benjamin straightened. We need time to review the offer. You have 48 hours, Kenneth said. After that, we file charges. Derek signed 36 hours later. Complete surrender. His ownership stake in the company transferred to me. All personal assets liquidated. The house, the cars, the investment accounts, everything. After debts were cleared and assets sold, we recovered $1.2 million. The rest was lost. Derek moved out west somewhere. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was working as a sales manager for a small manufacturing company. Lydia filed for divorce and child support. She got both. The company survived. Barely. We had to take out loans to cover operational expenses while we recovered from the theft. We lost 2 major clients who got nervous about our financial stability, but we adapted. We survived. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. 6 months after Derek signed the settlement, Patrick called me into his office. We need to talk about the vendor relationships, he said. What about them? The kickback scheme Derek was running. I've been going through the contracts and something doesn't add up. What do you mean? He pulled up a file on his computer. These vendors, the ones Derek was taking kickbacks from, they're still our vendors. We never terminated the relationships. We renegotiated the contracts. Kendra made sure they were clean going forward. Right, but here's the thing. These vendors knew they were participating in fraud. They knew they were inflating prices and kicking money back to Derek. And we just renegotiated with them? Kept doing business with them? Kenneth said it was cleaner that way. Less exposure if we didn't make it a big deal. Vanessa. Patrick's voice was careful. Did it ever occur to you to ask why these vendors agreed to renegotiate so easily? Why they didn't fight it? Why they just accepted new contracts at lower prices without any pushback? I assumed they didn't want the fraud exposed either. That's part of it, but I think there's more. He turned the monitor toward me. I've been tracking our costs over the last 6 months, since we renegotiated, and our material costs are still higher than industry standard. How much higher? 10 to 15%. I stared at the numbers. You think they're still inflating prices? I think we renegotiated from fraud-level pricing to merely overpriced pricing. And I think Kenneth knew exactly what he was doing when he structured it that way. Why would Kenneth do that? Patrick's expression was strange. Pull Kenneth's billing records for the last year. I did. The number made my stomach drop. Kenneth Fletcher had billed Harrington Industrial Textiles $340,000 in the last year for handling the Derek situation, for the settlement, for ongoing corporate counsel. That's 3 times his normal annual billing, I said. And he's got us locked into a new retainer agreement that guarantees him minimum monthly billing for the next 5 years. He used the crisis to inflate his own fees. Not just that. Look at who referred us to Kendra Sheffield. Kenneth. And look at Kendra's fees, $280,000 for the forensic audit. They played us, I said slowly. I think they saw an opportunity to turn a crisis into a profit center. Derek created the problem, they solved it in a way that maximized their own billing, and we were too focused on Derek to notice. I felt something cold settle in my chest. We need to audit the settlement. I already started. Vanessa, I think we left money on the table. I think Derek had more assets than we recovered, and I think Kenneth negotiated a settlement that was just big enough to look good, but small enough to close quickly. Why would he do that? Because a long, drawn-out battle would have been expensive for us and time-consuming for him. A quick settlement meant he could move on to the next client, and we'd be locked into paying him for years of ongoing counsel to make sure the settlement stuck. How much did we lose? Honestly, I think Derek had access to another $1 million, maybe more, that we never recovered because Kenneth wanted to close the deal fast. I called an emergency board meeting, just me, Patrick, and Sabrina. Kenneth was not invited. We need to fire Kenneth, I said. Sabrina looked stricken. On what grounds? Conflict of interest, excessive billing, negligence in the settlement negotiation. We'd need proof, Patrick said. Real proof, not just suspicion. Then we get proof. Sabrina, pull every bill Kenneth has submitted for the last 3 years. Cross-reference it against actual work performed. Document every discrepancy. That could take weeks. Then it takes weeks. It took 5 weeks. What we found was systematic overbilling on a scale that made Derek's theft look almost quaint. Kenneth had been inflating his hours for years, billing for work that was never performed, charging us for meetings that never happened, including associates on billing who'd never touched our files. The Derek situation had just been his opportunity to supercharge the scheme. Total estimated overbilling, $1.8 million over 6 years, more than half of what Derek had stolen. We need a lawyer to handle this, Sabrina said. We can't trust another lawyer, I said. So what do we do? I thought about that for a long time. About Kenneth sitting in that conference room presenting evidence of Derek's theft, while secretly planning his own. About Kendra and her expensive suit and her $280,000 fee for finding fraud while participating in her own version of it. About Derek and Lydia and the layers of deception that had nearly destroyed everything. About how I'd been so focused on one betrayal that I'd missed the others happening in plain sight. We handle it ourselves, I said. I sent Kenneth a letter. Not through a lawyer. Just me. Kenneth, I'm writing to inform you that Harrington Industrial Textiles is terminating our relationship effective immediately. We've completed an audit of your billing over the past 6 years and have identified significant irregularities. We have documented evidence of overbilling totaling $1.8 million. We have evidence of work billed but not performed, hours inflated beyond what was actually worked, and associates billed who never touched our files. You have 2 options. 1, you repay the $1.8 million in full, and we part ways quietly. 2, we file a formal complaint with the State Bar Association and pursue civil claims for fraud. You have 72 hours to decide. Vanessa Harrington Kenneth called within an hour. I didn't answer. He came to the office the next morning. I had security turn him away. He sent a letter from a different lawyer threatening to sue us for defamation. I sent back copies of the billing records with every discrepancy highlighted. The threats stopped. 48 hours later, Kenneth's new lawyer called to negotiate a settlement. We settled for $1.2 million. Took him 2 years to pay it all, but he paid. Kendra was harder. She'd technically performed the audit work, even if she'd inflated the fees. We couldn't prove overbilling the way we could with Kenneth. But I made sure every business owner I knew heard about what she'd charged us. I made sure her reputation took a hit. Small revenge, but it was something. A year after we fired Kenneth, Patrick retired. He sold me his shares in the company for fair market value and moved to Florida. You did the right thing, he told me on his last day. With Derek, with Kenneth, all of it. It doesn't feel right. It never does. But you protected the company. That's what matters. After he left, I stood in my office, the office that had been my grandfather's, then my father's, then mine, and looked at the company org chart on the wall. Harrington Industrial Textiles, 72 employees, $18 million in annual revenue, 3 generations of work. I'd saved it. But the cost had been everything I'd believed about trust, partnership, loyalty. The cost had been learning that everyone was lying, everyone was taking, everyone was looking for their angle. Derek had stolen the most, but he'd been the most honest about who he was. Kenneth and Kendra had stolen while pretending to help. The vendors had stolen while pretending to provide value. Even Lydia had stolen in her way by accepting money without asking where it came from. And me? What had I stolen? I'd taken Derek's freedom, Kenneth's reputation, Kendra's referrals. I'd used power and leverage and threat the same way they'd all used it against me. The difference was, I'd won. 2 years after Derek left, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Harrington, this is Marisa Harrington." It took me a moment to place the name. Derek's daughter. She'd be 7 now. "Marissa," I said carefully, "how did you get this number?" "My mom gave it to me. She said I should call you." "Why?" "Because my dad died, and Mom says you're the only person who might care." The world tilted slightly. "What happened?" "Heart attack. 3 days ago. Mom says we don't have money for a funeral." "Where's your mother?" "She's here. Do you want to talk to her?" Lydia's voice came on the line, tired, defeated. "Vanessa." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "Are you?" There was no hostility in her voice, just exhaustion. "I'm not calling to ask for money. I just thought you should know, in case it mattered." "It matters." "I don't know why it would. He destroyed your life, too." "He destroyed a lot of things." "Marissa wanted to call you. She's been asking questions about her dad, about who he really was. I've been trying to be honest with her, but it's hard." "How do you explain to a 7-year-old that her father was a liar?" "You tell her the truth, that he loved her." "Even if he didn't love honestly." "Did he?" "Love her." I thought about that. About Derek and his double life. About the years he'd spent maintaining 2 households, 2 identities, 2 complete existences. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't think he loved anyone. I think he loved the idea of being loved without having to be honest about who he was." That's what I thought too. "How are you managing, financially?" "We're getting by. I got a job, receptionist at a dental office. It's not much, but it's steady." "And child support?" "There wasn't any. Derek didn't have anything left to give. After he paid you back, after the lawyers, he had nothing." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You did what you had to do. I understand that now." We were quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" Lydia said. "Go ahead." "Do you ever regret it, pushing so hard, making sure he lost everything?" I thought about the company, about the employees who still had jobs, about my grandfather's legacy, preserved, about the $2.5 million Derek had stolen and the $1 million we'd recovered and the $1.5 million that was just gone, lost to greed and lies. "No," I said. "But I don't feel good about it either." "What do you feel?" "Nothing. I feel nothing at all." I didn't go to Derek's funeral. Neither did Patrick. Neither did anyone from the company. But I sent flowers, white lilies, no card, just flowers. Lydia sent me a photo later. The funeral was small, just her and Marisa and a few people I didn't recognize. Derek's casket was plain, cheap, the kind of casket you buy when you don't have money. I looked at the photo for a long time, at Marisa in a black dress that was too big for her, at Lydia standing behind her daughter with her hands on Marissa's shoulders, at the empty chairs in the funeral home. Derek had died the way he'd lived, alone, even when surrounded by people. 3 years after Derek's death, Harrington Industrial Textiles was bought by a larger textile conglomerate for $32 million. I didn't want to sell. But the industry was changing. Automation was making us obsolete. Competition from overseas was undercutting our prices. The writing was on the wall. I negotiated a deal that protected our employees. The conglomerate had to keep everyone on for at least 2 years at current wages. After that, it was out of my hands. I walked out of the final signing meeting with a check for $32 million and no company to run. 73 years. My grandfather, my father, me. Gone. I should have felt something. Loss, maybe. Grief. Instead, I felt the same, nothing I'd been feeling for years. I gave Lydia $1 million. She didn't ask for it. I just sent it. With a note. For Marissa's education and your future. Derek took enough from both of us. This isn't charity. It's restitution. Lydia called me crying. I can't accept this. You can. And you will. Why are you doing this? Because Marissa deserves a chance at something better than what we all built on lies. What are you going to do? With everything? I thought about that. About the money in my account, about the empty house in Montclair I'd sold, about the company that no longer existed, about the marriage that had been a fiction. I don't know, I said honestly. I think I'm going to disappear for a while. Where will you go? Somewhere no one knows me, somewhere I can figure out who I am when I'm not fighting. I'm writing this from a small apartment in Portland, not Oregon, Maine. I've been here 6 months. I walk on the beach every morning. I read, I cook, I do nothing. People ask what I did before I moved here. I tell them I ran a textile company. They nod politely. No one asks follow-up questions. I don't tell them about Derek, about Kenneth, about the years of lies and theft and betrayal. I don't tell them about the choice I made to save the company by destroying the man I'd loved. I don't tell them that I won and still lost everything. Sometimes I think about calling Lydia, asking about Marissa, asking if the money helped, asking if they're okay, but I don't because I'm not sure what answer I want to hear. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd handled things differently, if I'd just walked away from the company, let Derek have it, let him sink or swim on his own. But I know that's fantasy. The company was my family's legacy. It was my responsibility. I did what I had to do. Sabrina calls sometimes. She's working for the conglomerate now, managing integration of former Harrington operations. She tells me the employees are doing okay. Most of them kept their jobs past the 2-year guarantee. She asks if I'm okay. I tell her I'm fine. She doesn't believe me, but she doesn't push. Last week, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Dear Vanessa, my name is Marissa Coleman. You probably don't remember me, but you knew my father, Derek Harrington, and you sent my mother and me a lot of money after he died. I'm 13 now. I'm writing to say thank you. Because of what you did, my mom was able to go back to school. She's a dental hygienist now. And I'm going to a good school. I'm on the robotics team. We went to state finals last year. My mom told me about what happened with my dad, about how he lied to everyone, about how he stole from you, about how you made him give everything back. She said I should hate you for it, for making my dad lose everything, for making our life so hard after he died. But I don't hate you. I think you did what you had to do. My mom says adults make complicated choices, and sometimes there aren't good options. She says you chose to protect what mattered to you the same way she chose to protect me. I wanted you to know that the money helped, and that I'm going to do something good with my life. Something honest. Thank you. Marissa. I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and walked to the beach. The ocean was gray and cold and endless. Waves crashed against the rocks. Seabirds circled overhead. I stood there for a long time, watching the water. And for the first time in years, I felt something. Not peace, not forgiveness, not closure, but something like the possibility that maybe, eventually, the nothing would fade. Maybe one day I'd feel like a person again instead of a weapon. Maybe one day I'd remember what it felt like to trust someone, maybe. But not today. Today, I just stood on the beach and watched the waves and let myself feel the cold wind on my face. And that was enough.